Andreas, good to see you. Now, CTVQ uses software to turn a standard CT scan into a functional lung map. Sounds terrific, but for a mere mortal who's not a radiologist, explain it to us.
Sure. So, right now a CT scan, a CAT scan of your lungs really shows the radiologist or shows a doctor what your lungs look like. And for me, if you don't mind, I like the analogy of it's like you're having trouble with your car. And so the way that would work is you pop the bonnet, someone would take a photo of your engine and send it to their pal, the radiologist, right? And then that person's got to somehow work out by just looking at how your engine looks, what's going on. The way our technology works is we measure the way the air flows and the way the blood flows through your lungs. And in fact, it's the only FDA-approved technology that can do that without an injection into your body. And we show the doctor, how your lungs are actually working. And it's so much easier for them to work out what's wrong with you or what's right from a picture of how they're working rather than just a picture of how they look.
What a great tool for a radiologist, though, going forward. Obviously, they appreciate it. You've gone from 301 to 430 SaaS sites in one half. Scans more than doubled. Where are you on the growth curve?
We're really just at the very beginning. So the opportunities for the technology are limitless. And if you think about, just CTVQ, the initial target market we have there's 1 million VQ scans a year done just in the United States every year. The reimbursement for that now is $650. So we have a $650 million opportunity at software margins, 99 point something % margins as just the starting point. And we now have $280 million in the bank. So we've got the money to fund the next growth opportunity and probably the one after that as well.
So for those who don't understand that billing and reimbursement sort of model that you were talking about there, how important is that to cash flow and the growth of the business?
Look, it's traditionally extremely important, and I don't want to say it's not important to us, but one of the things we've worked really hard is that is absolutely essential when you're working with the radiologist. It's how they get paid, and that allows them to share some of those funds back with you. But at 4DMedical, we've built CTVQ to also really dramatically add value to surgical procedures. And so if you have a surgeon that has a $50,000 surgical procedure and we can bring that procedure forward 2 weeks, we can reduce the rate of cancellations by 10%, then that's worth $5,000 per pop, right? So at that point, $500 a scan starts to look pretty cheap. And the $650 reimbursement, while traditionally absolutely essential, is important, but is really just the icing on the top for us.
And see, a lot of investors wouldn't understand. They think, it's just a number of scans. Wow, it's really improving the medical side, but also the small business in terms of a radiologist to make their job easier, to improve their cash flow, is just another layer of attractiveness to them.
Absolutely. Look, these guys, do go into medicine to make a difference, to improve healthcare for their patients, but they are also running small businesses, each and every one of them. Whether it's the radiologist or, in the United States, surgeons typically will get a percentage of the surgical fee, that the hospital charges directly to their pocket, that week. So, if we can move funds forward and allow them to streamline what they're doing and also improve healthcare for the patient, that's the kind of win-win scenario that is really making this take off so quickly.
I was going to say that would help with adoption because medical sector is pretty slow to adopt new technologies traditionally, but this is an extra kicker for them.
Exactly, right? So I think, change is hard for everybody. Learning something new, doing something a little bit different, not necessarily very easy. But if you can be told that, hey, your patients want it, and so you'll get more patients, it's better for them, and also you can earn more.
Makes business sense as well.
Yeah, that's worth changing for.
Yeah, tell us about the Philips partnership and what that means.
We are just at the very beginning of our adoption curve, and we're incredibly excited about where there's going. There's 6,500 hospitals in the United States, and the way we see this taking off, we're starting we've allocated 2026 is about collecting the biggest and best logos, the best brand names in healthcare in the United States to adopt and to be using CTVQ. And, extremely excited to have, initiated with Stanford, UCSD. We now have Mayo evaluating the technology. So we have this great list of those. And at some point, that the groundswell of doctors is going to start to flip the equation, and we're going to have doctors from across those 6,000 hospitals looking to get in and use it. Philips has their software at something between 20 and 30% of all hospitals in the United States. They've allocated 250 salespeople to this. So as this really starts to take off, and when our sales force gets swamped, there's another 250 salespeople behind that to pick it up, and put their brand name and their muscle behind getting this.
Right, that's
done.
really powerful, isn't it? You raised $233 million in 2 tranches recently. What are you going to do with that?
Look, we are incredibly ambitious about where we're going. We've spent a lot of time building the foundations of a generational business. We've built the infrastructure behind this so that, for example, it cost us just somewhere south of $5 to deliver that $650 scan. No human hands touch that scan. There's no doctor in the loop. There's no human hands in the loop. So we've built a really very, very scalable business. We've been doing that very, very carefully. But as I said, there are some exciting blue sky opportunities in front of us. Right now, this million scan opportunity with the current product, next version of the product, we think that we can multiply that opportunity to about 6 million scans a year through some small changes to the product, a clinical trial. So we're probably a couple years away from that. We're going to continue to just, to take those funds, invest it on bringing it forward, de-risking it, but also, dramatically growing the opportunity. And for the first time, I think, investors are able to de-risk not just where we're at because we're delivering today, but they see our track record, they see the funds we have in the bank, and they think, right, this team now has the resources to go out and to continue to grow the opportunity.
Let's talk regions. You've got approvals in US, Europe, Canada, New Zealand, TGA here in Australia, in progress at the moment. Always seem to, with these Australian medical technologies, bring up the rear, but anyhow, that's another story. Where do you see the biggest growth? US dominates your revenue base at the moment. Outside of the US, which region do you see the...
I think Europe is the next sensible place for us to invest, and there's 2 reasons for that. It gives us nice diversification of market opportunity, separating the US market and the European market, which is nearly the same in population. Now, there's a few fewer scans per head of population, and they do bill a little bit less per scan, and those things, of course, compound on top of each other. But nevertheless, Europe is still a really exciting opportunity, and on top of that, for us, as I've just been talking with you, the thought leadership layer in US healthcare, those professors who go up and give the big keynote talks at the big conferences, if they do 6 conferences a year, they might do 4 of those in the United States and 2 in Europe. And so by investing into Europe, we also get a share of their attention span when they're not in the US. So we get double value out of investing in Europe. We get a nice diversification of the market, but also really, I think, increased attention of that leadership layer in US healthcare.
Okay. Tell us about nuclear VQ as well. That's traditionally slower to change from a clinical level. What's the prospects there?
There's some really exciting advances happening in nuclear medicine today. So, that's an area that where, this, for example, a technology called theranostics, where there are, new generation of drugs, where someone can see where cancer is, for example, and treat the cancer at the same time. So it's a really exciting field of medicine, and nuclear is leading the charge on that. And actually what we're really offering to the field of nuclear medicine is you can stop doing this scan that you don't like doing. You can allow us to take that over to radiology. You can allow us to do that imaging on a CT scanner where it just takes 5 minutes instead of it taking an hour on your equipment. And you're only getting paid $500 for doing that old nuclear VQ test. And you can replace that. The median reimbursement for other diagnostics they do in nuclear medicine is $1,220. So $720 bonus every time you let go of one of those scans and allow us to do it. And in fact, at the high end, the theranostic stuff, which is really, I think, very exciting and a positive for healthcare, they can bill as much as $6,000 or more for those tests. So really what we're allowing them to do is to let go of an old technology that they're not in love with, do the things where they can add the best value, and radiology can step in and do it more efficiently and effectively.
And again, it's a compelling business case for them to do it.
Yeah,
helps them.
We often, when we're at a site selling in CTVQ, oftentimes the folks from nuclear medicine show up on the sales call and say, "Hey, we're just here to make sure that no one drops the ball on this, and that radiology picks this up and allows us to do what we're good at."
Going through your financials, operating expenditure fell 17% year on year, while you were growing at over 100%. How does that happen?
We've been investing for a long time in building the fundamentals of what we need, building that infrastructure. So, that's heavy in some areas, and those costs, not all of those costs need to proceed, well into the future. We're remodeling the business, shifting it across from what it's needed to be, in terms of those building stages, moving resources across into the commercial parts of operations, and that's been, that's allowed us to deliver both things at the same time. I guess it's been part of the story of the interest and excitement that's been building from investors over the last year.
And you're learning to grow the business as well, for it to be the most efficient.
Yeah, that's right. And we're very curious about how we do that. We try a lot of things. Not all of them work, but the things that don't work get cut off, and the things that do work get more investment. And it's it sounds like it's a very simple strategy, but it's been very effective for us.
Yeah. Exciting story. Andreas, thanks for joining us.
Really a pleasure. Thank you so much.